The ring. The glass struck the marble floor before Abigail Reed heard the scream. Red wine spread across the white stone like blood beneath the long dining table. Crystal fragments glittered under the chandeliers. 20 of the most dangerous men in Chicago fell silent. At the center of the room stood Celeste Vieri. Her silver gown was stained from her waist to her knees. One hand clutched the wet fabric. The other pointed at Abigail. "You clumsy, disgusting woman." Abigail stood beside the overturned serving cart. Her breath caught in her chest. She had not touched the wine. Seconds earlier, a carved wooden box had begun sliding from the display table behind Celeste. It was one of the oldest possessions of the Leone family. Abigail had moved quickly and caught it before it struck the floor. Her shoulder had brushed the serving cart, but the wine had remained steady. Celeste had knocked over the glass herself. Abigail knew it. Matteo Leone knew it too. He sat at the head of the table beneath a portrait of his grandfather. His black suit was perfectly still. His expression revealed nothing. Only his eyes moved from the wine to the wooden box held against the chest of Abigail. Celeste stepped closer. "Do you understand what you have done?" Abigail lowered the box carefully onto the table. "I protected the heirloom." Celeste laughed. "You ruined a gown that cost more than your entire life." Several guests looked away. None of them challenged her. Celeste was the daughter of Vittorio Vieri, a powerful boss from New York. Her wedding to Matteo would unite two criminal empires. Abigail was only the housekeeper. She wore a plain black dress beneath a white apron. Her soft figure made the narrow uniform uncomfortable. But she refused to appear ashamed. She had spent most of her life being judged before she spoke. She had learned that dignity was often the only thing a cruel person could not take without permission. Celeste leaned close enough for Abigail to smell the wine on her breath. "Look at you. You should be grateful that this house allows someone like you to remain visible." Abigail felt every eye in the room. She also felt the weight of the carved box beneath her fingertips. The box had belonged to the mother of Matteo. Abigail had cleaned it every Thursday for 6 months. She knew every line in the dark wood, every faded symbol, and every tiny scratch around the lock. She had also discovered that the box contained something Celeste desperately wanted. Abigail lifted her chin. "I am grateful for honest work. I am not grateful for humiliation." The room became colder. Celeste stared at her in disbelief. Then she lifted her hand. Matteo rose before the blow could fall. He did not raise his voice. "Do not touch her." Celeste froze. Matteo walked around the table. Every man in the room watched him. Even the guards near the doors straightened. He stopped between the two women. Celeste tried to smile. "Matteo?" "She destroyed my gown." "No." The single word cut through the room. Celeste blinked. Matteo looked at the overturned glass. "You moved the glass when you reached for the box. That is not what happened. I watched you." The face of Celeste tightened. She was standing too close to the heirloom. She could have broken it. Abigail saved it. Matteo looked at the wooden box. That box survived a war. 3 betrayals. And the fire that killed my mother. Tonight, Abigail protected it while you nearly destroyed it. Celeste lowered her voice. "Are you defending a servant against your future wife?" Matteo looked at her hand. The engagement ring carried a square diamond surrounded by smaller stones. It had once belonged to the grandmother of Matteo. Celeste wore it like a crown. Matteo reached for her fingers. For one heartbeat. Celeste believed he was going to comfort her. Instead, he removed the ring. A shocked murmur moved around the table. Matteo turned toward Abigail. She stepped back. Matteo took her hand. His fingers were warm. His touch was controlled. But the contact sent a strange current through her body. Abigail looked up at him and saw something unfamiliar beneath his calm expression. Not affection. Not yet. It was recognition. He opened her palm and placed the ring inside it. This house belongs to those who protect it, Matteo said. Not those who believe they own it. Celeste went pale. What are you doing? Matteo closed the fingers of Abigail around the diamond. I am ending our engagement. Vittorio Vieri pushed back his chair. Think carefully. Leone. Matteo did not look at him. I have been thinking carefully for 2 years. Celeste stared at Abigail. You are choosing her. Matteo finally met the eyes of his former fiancée. I am choosing loyalty. Abigail tried to pull her hand away, but Matteo held it for 1 additional second. It was not a romantic gesture. It was a declaration of war. Outside the mansion, thunder rolled across the Chicago sky. The lights went out. Gunfire shattered the windows. The first attack, Matteo pulled Abigail to the floor as bullets tore through the chandeliers. Crystal rained over the dining hall. Guests overturned the table and reached beneath their jackets. Guards rushed through the side doors. Abigail pressed both hands over her head. Matteo covered her body with his. The warmth of him was frightening. His shoulder was pressed against her back. One arm protected her head while the other held a gun. Stay down. Another window exploded. Celeste screamed from behind a stone column. Vittorio shouted commands at his men, but no one knew who had opened fire. Matteo lifted his head. The shooters were outside the eastern garden. He fired twice through the broken window. A shadow fell behind the hedges. Abigail stared at him. He remained calm while the room dissolved into terror. A guard dropped near the doorway. Matteo moved without hesitation, pulling Abigail behind the overturned dining table. Can you run? She nodded. Take the box. Abigail looked at the heirloom beneath the table. Why? Because they came for it. She grabbed the box. Matteo placed his hand against the center of her back and guided her toward a hidden door behind the portrait of his grandfather. Celeste saw them. Matteo, do not leave me. He looked at one of his guards. Get the guests underground. Then he pushed Abigail through the hidden door and followed her. The passage was narrow and dark. Emergency lights glowed along the floor. Abigail held the box against her body as Matteo locked the door behind them. The gunfire became distant. Where are we going? To the garage? What about everyone else? My men will protect them. Including Celeste. Matteo looked at her. Do you care? Abigail did not answer. She disliked Celeste, but she did not want her dead. That difference mattered to Abigail, even if it meant nothing inside the world of Matteo. They reached a steel door. Matteo opened it into an underground garage filled with black vehicles. His closest guard, Roman Vale, waited beside an armored sport utility vehicle. Roman had a scar across his jaw and the patient expression of a man who rarely needed to repeat himself. The north gate is compromised, Roman said. Matteo opened the rear door. Take Abigail to the safe house. She tightened her hold on the box. I am not going anywhere without an explanation. Matteo faced her. Men are shooting at you. They are shooting at your house. They arrived 3 minutes after I ended my engagement. They ignored the guests. They targeted the eastern wall, which is the closest path to the display room. They came for that box. And you are holding it. Abigail looked down. She had spent months searching the mansion for evidence left by her father. She had believed the carved box might contain part of the truth, but its lock had no visible keyhole. She had never told anyone. How do you know what they wanted? Matteo stepped closer. Because I know why you applied for this job. Miss Reed. Her heart stopped. He had always called her Abigail. Never Miss Reed. She moved away from him. What do you know, everything? Roman opened the vehicle door wider. We need to move. Abigail ignored him. Did you know my father? Matteo stared at her. Yes. The answer hurt more than she expected. Thomas Reed had worked as a financial auditor for several businesses connected to the Leone family. 7 years earlier, he had been accused of stealing $12 million. Before he could defend himself, His car had exploded on a highway outside Chicago. The newspapers called him a thief. Abigail called him innocent. She had taken the housekeeper position because the last location written in the notebook of her father was the Leone mansion. Matteo had known from the beginning. You hired me because of him. I hired you because people are trying to kill you. The garage lights flickered. A bullet struck the metal door behind them. Matteo pushed Abigail into the vehicle and climbed in after her. Roman took the passenger seat while another guard accelerated toward the western tunnel. Abigail held the box on her lap. Matteo sat beside her, close enough that their knees almost touched. She moved toward the window. How long have you known? Since the day you submitted your application. Why did you let me into your home? Because I wanted you where I could see you. The answer should have sounded protective. Instead, it sounded like a cage closing around her. Black vehicles followed them into the rainy night. The skyline of Chicago glowed beyond the river as the convoy raced through empty streets. Abigail watched Matteo in the reflection of the glass. He was feared by politicians, businessmen, and killers. Yet he had noticed the ordinary woman who cleaned his library and replaced flowers in rooms he rarely entered. He had known her name. He had known her father. He had watched her search. She closed her fingers around the ring, still hidden in her palm. Why did you give me this? Matteo looked at the diamond. To protect you. From Celeste. From everyone who will now believe you matter to me. Abigail turned toward him. Do I? His expression did not change. That is the question that can get us both killed. The safe house. The safe house stood beside Lake Michigan, hidden behind iron gates and rows of winter trees. Rain moved across the dark water. The building looked less like a home and more like a fortress built from black stone and glass. Abigail stepped from the vehicle with the wooden box held beneath her coat. Matteo walked beside her, one hand near the center of her back without touching. She noticed every time his fingers almost reached her. She noticed even more when they stopped. Inside, Roman checked every room while two guards secured the doors. Abigail entered a living room with tall windows facing the lake. There were no family photographs, no flowers, no evidence that anyone had ever laughed there. Matteo removed his wet jacket. You will stay here until I know who ordered the attack. I have work tomorrow. The mansion is a crime scene. Then I will return to my apartment. No. Abigail looked at him. That was not a request. It was not. You cannot control where I live. Tonight, I can. The cold certainty in his voice frightened her. It also angered her. You put a ring in my hand without asking? You announced that I mattered to you in front of half the criminal world. Now you have brought me to a fortress and decided I cannot leave. Do you understand how insane that sounds? Yes. His calm response made her more furious. Then stop acting as though this is normal. Nothing about tonight is normal. Matteo took the box from her and placed it on the table. Your father discovered that someone inside my family was stealing money from our companies and paying members of the Vieri organization. Celeste. I do not know. You expect me to believe that I expect you to understand that believing the wrong person can be fatal. Abigail studied him. Did my father tell you? He requested a private meeting with my father. He never reached it. The father of Matteo had died 2 months after Thomas Reed. Matteo had inherited the organization during a period of open war. Abigail stepped closer. Did your family kill him? Matteo did not answer immediately. That silence was enough. Her throat tightened. Did you kill my father? No. Did you order it? No. Did you know someone wanted him dead? Matteo looked toward the rain. I knew he was afraid. She stared at him. And you did nothing. I was 26 years old, fighting my uncle for control of the family. Your father refused protection because he did not trust us. He was right. Matteo faced her again. He was right not to trust my family. He was wrong to believe he could disappear alone. Abigail felt tears burning behind her eyes. But she refused to let them fall. Why did you hire me? Your father sent me a message on the night he died. He said the proof was hidden inside the house and that one day you would know how to find it. Abigail looked at the wooden box. You think it is inside this. I think Celeste believes it is. She moved toward the table. The box has no keyhole. Matteo touched a small symbol carved near the base. It does not need a key. He pressed the symbol. Nothing happened. My mother designed the mechanism. It opens with music. What music? A melody she used to play on the piano. Matteo walked toward a black piano near the windows. He sat but did not place his hands on the keys. Abigail waited. Why did you stop? I have not played it since she died. The storm filled the silence. For the first time, Abigail saw something human beneath the power of Matteo. Not softness. Not weakness. It was grief held so tightly that it had become part of his bones. She sat beside him. The bench was narrow. Her arm brushed his. Matteo became still. Abigail looked at the keys. You do not have to play the entire song. He watched her fingers. Do you know it? I heard the melody while cleaning the music room. There is an old recording inside the cabinet. She touched the first key. Matteo placed his hand over hers. The contact was gentle, but neither of them moved. Rain struck the windows. Their shoulders remained pressed together. His eyes lowered to her mouth for one brief moment. Then Roman entered. We found a tracking device beneath the box. Matteo removed his hand immediately. The warmth vanished. Roman placed a small black device on the table. It was activated before dinner. Celeste. Abigail said. Matteo stood, or someone who wanted us to blame her. The lights outside the windows moved. A line of vehicles approached the gate. Roman reached for his weapon. We have company. Matteo pulled Abigail away from the windows. She expected another attack. Instead, the first vehicle stopped beneath the entrance lights. Celeste stepped out into the rain. She was still wearing the wine-stained silver gown. The false engagement Celeste entered the safe house surrounded by 6 armed men. Water glistened on her dark hair. Her expression was controlled, but humiliation burned in her eyes. Matteo stood between her and Abigail. You brought armed men to one of my private properties. Your enemies attacked me too. Celeste looked past him. I came to warn you. About what my father believes, your decision at dinner was a public insult against the Vieri family. Unless you correct it by tomorrow evening, the alliance is over. It ended when you raised your hand toward Abigail. Celeste laughed without humor. Do you truly expect anyone to believe that you destroyed a political marriage because of a housekeeper? Matteo did not answer. Celeste walked closer. People will search for another explanation. They will decide she is your mistress. They will decide she knows your secrets. They will decide hurting her is the fastest way to control you. Abigail felt the truth of those words. Matteo had placed the ring in her hand to protect her, but he had also painted a target over her heart. Celeste looked directly at her. How many hours do you believe you have before every ambitious man in this city begins hunting you? Enough, Matteo said. For what? To discover which one of them you helped enter my home. Celeste slapped him. The sound echoed through the room. Every guard reached for a weapon. Matteo did not move. Celeste lowered her shaking hand. I did not order the attack. You placed the tracker beneath the box. I placed nothing. Then who knew you would stand beside it during dinner? Her face changed. Only my dressmaker and Lorenzo knew where I would sit. Lorenzo Leone was the cousin of Matteo and the public director of the family charities. He appeared respectable. He attended church every Sunday. He also controlled the ports on the southern edge of Chicago. Abigail remembered seeing Lorenzo near the display room that afternoon. He had been speaking quietly to Celeste. You were meeting Lorenzo, Abigail said. Celeste turned. You were listening. I was replacing the flowers. You are always listening. I am usually ignored. There is a difference. Matteo looked at Abigail. What did you hear? Lorenzo asked, whether everything would be ready before midnight. Celeste told him not to speak about it inside the mansion. Celeste stepped toward her. That conversation concerned the wedding. Did it concern the wooden box? No. Matteo studied her with cold patience. Celeste looked away first. Her father appeared at the doorway. Vittorio Vieri wore a dark overcoat and carried a silver cane. He did not need the cane to walk. It concealed a blade, and everyone in the room knew it. Vittorio looked at Matteo. Your cousin has called a meeting of the council tomorrow night. He claims your public behavior proves that you have lost control. Matteo showed no surprise. Vittorio continued. If the council votes against you, Lorenzo becomes acting head of the Leone family. My daughter will marry him instead, and the alliance will survive. Celeste looked at her father. You never told me that. You were not required to know. The cruelty of the statement made Abigail understand Celeste differently. It did not excuse the humiliation, but it revealed the prison beneath the expensive gown. Celeste had been raised as an object of negotiation. Matteo turned toward Roman. Contact every member of the council. They will not come. Vittorio said, not unless you prove that your decision was strategic rather than emotional. Matteo looked at Abigail. She felt the air leave the room. No, he had not spoken yet. But she knew. Matteo approached her. Tomorrow night, you will attend the council meeting beside me. As what? My fiancé? Celeste went silent. Abigail stared at him. You ended one false engagement and created another within an hour. This is different. How? You know it is false. Celeste gave a bitter laugh. At least he is honest with one of us. Abigail opened her hand. The ring lay against her palm. She pressed it into the chest of Matteo. Find another strategy. His fingers closed around her wrist. Not painfully, but firmly enough to stop her. There is no other strategy that keeps you alive. I survived before I met you. You survived because no one knew who you were. And now they know because of you. Something shifted in his eyes. Guilt. He released her. You are right. The words surprised everyone. Matteo looked toward the ring. I created the danger. I will end it. Abigail crossed her arms. Without making me your property, you will never be my property. Then ask me. The storm rumbled over the lake. Matteo Leone had commanded hundreds of men. He had ended wars with a telephone call. He had likely forgotten how to request anything. His gaze remained on her. Will you stand beside me tomorrow night? Why should I? Because Lorenzo believes you can open the box. If I appear alone, he will attack you here. If you appear beside me, every weapon in the room will be pointed at me instead. Abigail hated that his reasoning made sense. What happens after the meeting? I release you from the engagement and send you somewhere safe. You mean you hide me? Until the war is over. And if it never ends, Matteo looked at her with quiet intensity. Then I will spend the rest of my life ending it. Abigail felt the danger of those words. She should have refused. Instead, she held out her hand. Matteo placed the ring on her finger. This time, he did it slowly. His thumb brushed the inside of her wrist, where her pulse raced beneath the skin. Neither of them looked away. The council. The meeting took place inside an abandoned church on the western edge of Chicago. Snow had begun falling before sunset. Black vehicles lined the street. Armed guards stood beneath stone angels, darkened by time. Abigail wore a deep green gown selected by Roman. The fabric followed her soft figure instead of hiding it. She had expected Matteo to request something more modest. When she entered the library of the safe house, he had looked at her and forgotten to speak. That silence had meant more than praise. Now she sat beside him in the rear of an armored vehicle. The ring felt heavy on her hand. Matteo wore black. He watched the passing streets. But Abigail could feel his awareness of her. "Do not leave my side," he said. "You have repeated that 6 times. I will repeat it until you listen." "I listened the first time." "Then why did you walk into the kitchen alone this morning?" "I wanted coffee." "There were 4 guards outside your room. None of them knew how I take my coffee." Matteo looked at her. "How do you take it? A little cream? No sugar?" He nodded as though recording information that might decide the fate of nations. Abigail looked through the window to hide her smile. The church doors opened as they arrived. Inside, candles burned along the central aisle. Leaders from 6 families sat beneath the broken, stained glass windows. Lorenzo waited near the altar. He resembled Matteo, but his smile was warmer. Abigail now understood that warmth could hide more than coldness. Celeste stood beside Lorenzo in a red gown. Her father remained behind them. Whispers moved through the church when Matteo entered, with Abigail on his arm. She felt every stare move across her body. Some showed confusion, others showed amusement. Lorenzo smiled. "Cousin, you have brought your housekeeper." Matteo guided Abigail to the front row. "I brought my future wife." The whispers became voices. Lorenzo looked at the ring. "That belonged to our grandmother." "It belongs to the woman I choose." Abigail glanced at Matteo. His tone did not sound false. Lorenzo raised his hands. "Then allow us to congratulate you. Your decision has made tonight much easier." A projector turned on behind the altar. Images appeared across the white stone wall. Photographs of Abigail leaving her apartment. Abigail visiting the grave of her father. Abigail entering the Leone mansion. Abigail searching the library late at night. Her stomach turned. She looked at Matteo. "Did you take those?" He did not answer. Lorenzo watched her face. "Your devoted fiancé has followed you for years." Abigail stepped away from Matteo. More photographs appeared. Matteo, sitting in a vehicle across from her apartment. Matteo speaking with the employer who had dismissed her 3 years earlier. Matteo standing in the back of the church during the funeral of her mother. She could not breathe. "You were there." Matteo remained still. "Yes." "Why?" Lorenzo answered for him. "Guilt." The final image appeared. It showed Thomas Reed entering a warehouse on the night he died. A younger Matteo stood near the entrance. Abigail turned toward him. "You saw my father that night?" "Yes." "You told me he never reached the meeting." "He never reached the meeting with my father." "But he reached you." Matteo lowered his voice. "Abigail, this is not the place." "It is exactly the place." The entire council watched them. Lorenzo smiled. "Tell her what happened." Matteo looked at his cousin. "You altered the security records." "Tell her." Abigail felt tears in her eyes. "What happened to my father?" Matteo faced her. "He came to me with evidence against Lorenzo." I did not believe him. The words struck harder than the slap Celeste had intended. "Why not?" "Because Lorenzo was my brother in everything except blood." "You chose him." "I chose the family." "My father was trying to save your family." "I know that now." "What did you do?" Matteo did not hide from her. "I told your father to leave Chicago. I promised I would investigate." He refused to surrender the evidence. 2 hours later, his vehicle exploded. Abigail pulled the ring from her finger. "You watched me for 7 years because you felt guilty." At first, his eyes held hers. Then I watched because I could not stop." The church became silent. Abigail felt exposed before every enemy in the room. "That is not protection." "No. That is obsession." "Yes." He admitted it without shame. But pain moved beneath his voice. Abigail placed the ring on the bench between them. "I will not become a payment for your guilt." Lorenzo clapped slowly. "There is the weakness we came to witness." Matteo turned toward him. "You will not leave this church." "Perhaps not." Lorenzo nodded toward the balconies. Armed men appeared above them. Some wore the colors of the Vieri family. Others wore the crest of Leone. Betrayal moved through the room like a shadow. Lorenzo looked at Abigail. "Bring me the box, and I will tell you who placed the bomb beneath the car of your father." Matteo stepped in front of her. "You will speak now." Lorenzo smiled. The housekeeper must choose. The woman who chose herself. Abigail looked at Lorenzo. "You believe the box contains the financial records." "I know it does." "Then why did you not steal it before tonight?" The smile faded from his face. Abigail continued. "Because you cannot open it. You need Matteo. Or you need me." Matteo glanced back at her. Lorenzo raised his weapon. "Give me the box." "It is not here." Lorenzo looked toward Roman. Roman stood near the rear doors, surrounded by guards. "Search the vehicles," Lorenzo ordered. Matteo spoke quietly. "The vehicles are empty." Lorenzo looked at him. "Where is it safe?" Abigail understood. Matteo had never intended to bring the evidence into the church. He had expected betrayal. Celeste moved away from Lorenzo. "You told me no one would be hurt." Lorenzo grabbed her arm. "Return to your place." She pulled free. "I am not your property." For the first time, Abigail saw the mask of Celeste break completely. Beneath the pride was fear. Beneath the cruelty was a woman who had spent her life being traded between men. Vittorio struck the stone floor with his cane. "Enough. This alliance was meant to prevent war." Lorenzo turned toward him. "The alliance was meant to make me king." "You are not a king." The shot came from the balcony. Vittorio fell behind the altar. Celeste screamed and ran toward her father. Chaos exploded. Matteo pulled Abigail behind a stone column as gunfire filled the church. Roman and the loyal guards returned fire from the rear. Candles fell across the floor. Flames climbed the old wooden benches. Abigail covered her ears. Matteo pressed his body against hers, shielding her from the broken stone. "Are you hurt?" "No." "Look at me." She raised her eyes. "Stay behind this column until Roman reaches you." "Where are you going?" "To Lorenzo." "Matteo." His hand touched her cheek. The gesture lasted only a heartbeat. "I should have believed your father." "Then do not repeat the same mistake with me." His eyes searched hers. "What are you asking?" "Do not leave me behind while you decide everything." Another bullet struck the column. Matteo pulled her closer. "This is not a negotiation. It is now." Even in the middle of the attack, something almost like pride appeared in his expression. "What do you know?" "The melody that opens the box." His gaze sharpened. "You remembered it. I practiced it while cleaning the music room. I thought it might matter." "Where's the box?" "At the safe house." "Then Roman will take you there." "You are coming with me." "No." She grabbed the front of his coat. "Lorenzo wants the evidence destroyed. The only way to end this war is to reveal it to the entire council. Killing him will not prove anything." Matteo looked toward the burning aisle. "You sound like your father." "I am his daughter." Roman reached the column. "The western exit is clear." Matteo made his decision. "Take Abigail to the vehicle." Abigail tightened her grip on his coat. "You promised to ask." His jaw hardened. "Will you go with Roman? Will you come with us?" Gunfire echoed above them. Matteo looked at the flames moving through the church. Then he nodded. They ran. Roman led them through a side corridor as the stained glass windows shattered behind them. Snow rushed through the broken doorway. A black vehicle waited beside the church. Matteo opened the rear door for Abigail. A figure emerged from the darkness. Celeste held a weapon with both hands. Her face was wet with tears. Matteo moved in front of Abigail. Celeste pointed the weapon at him. "My father is dead because of you. Lorenzo killed him. You humiliated me. You destroyed the alliance. You brought her into our world." Abigail stepped beside Matteo. Celeste looked at her. "Stay behind him." That is where women like you belong. Abigail did not move. Your father used you. Lorenzo used you. Matteo used me. We can continue punishing each other for the choices of powerful men. Or we can stop helping them. Matteo glanced at her. But she kept her eyes on Celeste. Celeste tightened her grip on the weapon. You think we are the same? No. I think we both deserve the chance to choose what happens next. Snow gathered in the dark hair of Celeste. Slowly, she lowered the weapon. Lorenzo appeared in the church doorway. He fired. Matteo pushed Abigail behind the vehicle. Roman returned fire. Celeste fell into the snow. Abigail crawled toward her. Matteo shouted her name, but she continued. Celeste was conscious. The bullet had struck her shoulder. Abigail pressed part of her gown against the wound. Why are you helping me? Celeste asked. Because I refuse to become you. The safe house betrayal. The convoy reached the lake house shortly before midnight. Roman carried Celeste inside while a doctor waited in the lower level. Matteo ordered guards to secure the property. Abigail ran to the piano. The carved box remained on the table where they had left it. Matteo stood behind her. Are you certain about the melody? No. He looked toward the windows. Lorenzo will find us within minutes. Then sit down. Matteo joined her on the piano bench. Their clothes were wet from the snow. Ash darkened one side of his face. Abigail could feel the restrained violence inside him. But he allowed her to guide his hands toward the keys. Play the first 4 notes, she said. He did. The melody was slow and mournful. Abigail added the next notes. Together, they played the song once, performed by the mother of Matteo. For a moment, the war disappeared. There was only the quiet room, the lake beyond the windows, and their hands moving beside each other. The final note faded. A soft click came from the box. Matteo stood. Abigail opened the lid. Inside was a small music mechanism and a faded photograph of 2 young women. One was the mother of Matteo. The other was the mother of Abigail. She stared at it. They knew each other. Matteo took the photograph. My mother never told me. Abigail removed a false wooden panel. Beneath it was a flash drive, a stack of handwritten records, and a sealed letter. Her name was written across the envelope. She opened it with trembling fingers. The letter was from her father. Abigail read silently. Her father explained that he had discovered a secret partnership between Lorenzo and a member of the Vieri family. They were stealing from both organizations and arranging attacks that would force Matteo and Celeste into marriage. The letter also revealed that the mother of Abigail had once worked with the mother of Matteo to create legitimate businesses that could free both families from criminal control. Before they succeeded, the mother of Matteo died in a fire. The fire had been ordered by the uncle of Lorenzo. Abigail reached the final page. Matteo stood across from her. What does it say? She looked up. My father trusted you. His expression changed. He wrote that you were young, angry, and surrounded by people who taught you that mercy was weakness. He believed you could become different. Matteo looked away. He was wrong. No. You decided he was wrong because guilt is easier than change. The words struck him. Abigail held up the flash drive. We need to send these records to every member of the council. Roman entered. I will connect it to the secure network. Matteo did not give it to him. Roman stopped. The room became silent. Abigail looked between them. Matteo slowly reached inside his jacket. Roman drew his weapon first. I hoped you would not notice, Roman said. Pain moved across the face of Matteo. How long since your father died? Roman raised the weapon. Lorenzo offered me control of the Northern Territory. I was tired of protecting a man who wanted to turn an empire into a collection of legal companies. Abigail stepped in front of the table. You placed the tracker beneath the box. Roman smiled. The housekeeper sees everything. Matteo moved slightly to the left. Roman pointed the weapon toward Abigail. Do not. The single word from Matteo was quieter than a whisper. Roman looked at him. There it is. The weakness everyone feared. Matteo stared at the weapon aimed at Abigail. You were my brother. You never had a brother? You had soldiers. Roman reached for the flash drive. Matteo attacked. The weapon fired into the ceiling. They crashed into the table. The carved box fell. But Abigail caught it before it hit the floor, just as she had during dinner. Roman struck Matteo and reached for another weapon. Abigail threw the wooden box at his arm. The weapon slid across the floor. Matteo pinned Roman against the wall. His hand closed around the throat of his former friend. Roman struggled. Abigail saw the cold fury in Matteo. He was seconds away from killing him. Matteo. Stop. He did not hear her. She touched his arm. We need him alive. His grip tightened. He betrayed you. Then let him answer for it. Matteo looked at her. Roman collapsed to the floor when Matteo released him. Guards rushed into the room and dragged him away. Matteo remained near the wall, breathing heavily. Abigail picked up the flash drive. You stopped because I asked. Only because you asked. That should not have affected her. It did. An alarm sounded throughout the house. The monitor near the door showed dozens of vehicles approaching through the snow. Lorenzo had found them. The siege, the first explosion, destroyed the eastern gate. Abigail stood in the command room as guards secured every entrance. Live camera images showed armed men moving through the trees. Lorenzo had brought an army. Matteo placed the flash drive into a computer. The secure network is blocked. Can we use another connection? Not without exposing the location of every loyal member of the council. Celeste entered with her injured arm secured against her body. Use my father network. Matteo looked at her. Vittorio kept a private satellite connection for emergencies. Lorenzo does not know the access code. Why are you helping us? Celeste looked at Abigail. Someone reminded me that I still have a choice. She entered the code. The connection opened. Abigail uploaded the files. A warning appeared across the screen. Transfer time. 9 minutes. The lights flickered. Matteo turned toward his guards. Hold the house for 10 minutes. Men moved toward the doors. Abigail looked through the security feed. Attackers crossed the frozen garden while bullets struck the windows. Matteo checked his weapon. Where are you going? Outside. No. He turned. Abigail stepped closer. You cannot protect me by making certain I watch you die. His expression remained controlled. But the words reached him. If they enter this room, Lorenzo will kill you. Then stay here and stop him. He studied her face. Abigail could hear the gunfire growing closer. Matteo lifted his hand as though he intended to touch her. His fingers stopped near her cheek. She closed the distance herself. His palm rested against her face. The room seemed to disappear around them. He looked at her as though she were the only thing in the world he did not know how to command. I have imagined touching you for years, he said. That is a frightening confession. I am a frightening man. You do not frighten me as much as you should. His thumb moved gently along her cheek. That frightens me more. The transfer reached 3 minutes. A window exploded in the hallway. Matteo lowered his forehead against hers. If we survive tonight, I will release you from every promise I forced you to make. And if I do not want to be released, his eyes opened. Do not say that because you are afraid. I am saying it because I am tired of pretending I feel nothing. He almost kissed her. A guard shouted from the hall. They pulled apart. The transfer reached 5 minutes. Matteo placed Abigail behind the command table and moved toward the doorway. This time, he did not leave. He fought from the entrance, protecting the room while the guards retreated through the hall. Lorenzo entered the house. His voice came through the speakers. You cannot save her. Matteo. Matteo fired toward the staircase. Lorenzo continued. You know what happened to every woman your family loved. Your mother burned. Your grandmother was betrayed. Abigail will become another grave you visit in silence. Matteo looked at the screen. The transfer reached 7 minutes. Smoke entered the room. Celeste coughed. There is another exit beneath the floor. Abigail shook her head. Not until the transfer finishes. Lorenzo appeared behind the glass doors. He fired into the command room. Matteo pulled Abigail beneath the table. The computer monitors shattered, but the main system continued working. 8 minutes. Lorenzo entered. He held a weapon toward Matteo. You always believed control made you strong. Matteo moved in front of Abigail. Lorenzo smiled. Look at you now, kneeling for a housekeeper. Matteo lowered himself slowly. Abigail realized he was surrendering, not because Lorenzo had defeated him, because the weapon was pointed at her. Lorenzo approached. Abigail looked at the transfer display near the floor. 9 minutes. 90%. Lorenzo pressed the weapon against the head of Matteo. Give me the drive. Matteo removed it from the computer. Abigail watched the progress. 94%. Matteo held the drive out. Lorenzo reached for it. Celeste stepped from behind the doorway and struck the injured shoulder of Lorenzo with a metal lamp. The weapon fired. Matteo attacked. Abigail crawled toward the computer. 98%. Lorenzo threw Matteo against the glass wall. Abigail pressed the final command. Transfer complete. Every screen in the house turned on. Financial records. Recorded conversations. And names appeared across them. The truth had reached the council. Lorenzo saw it, his face filled with panic. He grabbed Abigail and pulled her against him. Matteo stopped. Lorenzo pressed a weapon near her side. Delete the files. It is too late. Abigail said, then you die first. Matteo dropped his weapon. Take the house. Take the ports. Take my name. Lorenzo laughed. You would surrender everything for her. Matteo looked at Abigail. Everything. She felt the truth of it. Lorenzo moved toward the broken windows, dragging her with him. Abigail remembered the ring in the pocket of her gown. She pulled it out and pressed the pointed edge of the setting into the hand of Lorenzo. He released her. Matteo crossed the room and struck him. The weapon fell through the broken glass. Lorenzo stumbled onto the balcony. Snow moved across the lake. He looked at Matteo. You cannot change what you are. Matteo stopped several feet away. No, but I can choose what I become. Lorenzo reached for a hidden blade. Celeste shouted a warning. Matteo moved. The struggle lasted only seconds. Lorenzo fell against the railing. The damaged metal broke beneath his weight. He disappeared into the darkness below. Silence filled the ruined house. Abigail stood near the computer, shaking. Matteo turned toward her. He crossed the room but stopped before touching her. Are you hurt? No. Only then did his control break. He pulled her into his arms. Abigail pressed her face against his chest. His heart was beating as violently as hers. He held her as though the entire world had tried to take her and had almost succeeded. She understood that his obsession was not love. Not yet. Love required truth. Love required freedom. Love required the courage to let someone choose. Matteo loosened his arms. I promise to release you. Abigail looked up. Then keep your promise. The choice. 3 weeks later. Abigail returned to her apartment. The Leone Council had accepted the evidence from her father. Roman confessed to helping Lorenzo arrange the bombing that killed Thomas Reed. Several leaders connected to the conspiracy were arrested through information delivered anonymously to federal investigators. Celeste inherited the legal businesses of her father. She left Chicago without saying goodbye to Matteo. Before leaving, she visited Abigail. The meeting took place inside a quiet cafe. Celeste wore a simple coat. Without the diamonds and armed guards, she looked younger. I was cruel to you, Celeste said. Yes. I expected you to make that easier for me. I spent years making things easier for people who hurt me. Celeste lowered her eyes. I do not know how to apologize. Begin by becoming someone who would not repeat it. Celeste nodded. She left the engagement ring on the table. It belongs to the Leone family. Abigail returned it to the mansion the next morning. Matteo was not there. He had kept his promise. No guards followed her. No black vehicles waited outside her apartment. No silent men appeared at her workplace. The absence should have felt like freedom. Instead, it felt like a room after the music ended. Abigail accepted a position managing the Leone Charitable Foundation. The organization had been created by her mother and the mother of Matteo. But their names had been removed from its history. Abigail restored them. She also created a financial program for families affected by criminal violence. Every document was approved by Matteo without argument. He communicated through formal messages. He never visited. Winter became spring. One rainy evening, Abigail remained late inside the foundation office. The city lights reflected across the windows. She found a black envelope on her desk. Inside was the engagement ring. There was also a note written by Matteo. This belonged to a promise made without choice. Decide what should happen to it. Abigail looked outside. A black vehicle waited across the street. Matteo sat in the rear seat. He was not hiding. She took her coat and walked into the rain. He stepped from the vehicle. For a moment, neither spoke. Matteo looked different, not softer. He still carried the controlled danger that made strangers move away from him. But the loneliness in his eyes was no longer hidden. You followed me again, Abigail said. I parked where you could see me. That is progress. A faint expression touched his face. She held up the ring. Why did you send this? Because it should belong to you. I do not want a ring taken from another woman during her humiliation. Then sell it. Destroy it. Give the money to the foundation. Abigail studied him. What do you want? Matteo looked toward the office above them. I want to enter your life without taking it over. That does not sound easy for you. It is unbearable. She almost smiled. Rain moved across his dark hair. Why did you stay away? You asked to be released. I asked you to keep your promise. I did not ask you to disappear. Matteo stepped closer. There is no safe distance for me with you. I either leave completely, or I become the man who waits outside every door. Then learn a third option. What is it, knock? His eyes held hers. Abigail placed the old ring in his palm. This ring represents an alliance, a betrayal, and a decision you made for me. I do not want it. Matteo closed his hand. I understand. She reached for the door of his vehicle. Drive me home. He opened the door for her. During the journey, Matteo sat on the opposite side of the seat. He did not touch her. Abigail watched him struggle with the distance. When they reached her building, he followed her to the entrance. She turned. Are you going to order me to remain inside? No? Are you going to place guards outside? Only if you ask. Are you going to tell me that belonging to you is the only way to remain safe? Never again. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she opened the door. Would you like to come inside, Matteo Leone? The most feared man in Chicago appeared uncertain for the first time. Yes. The new ring Matteo entered the apartment of Abigail as though crossing into enemy territory. The rooms were small. Books covered one wall. Plants crowded the windows. A photograph of Thomas Reed stood on the table. Matteo stopped before it. Abigail watched him. You can speak to him. Matteo looked at the photograph. He would not answer. Neither did you when he needed you. The words were not gentle, but they were honest. Matteo accepted them. I failed him. Yes. I cannot change that. No. He looked at Abigail. I can spend the rest of my life protecting what he loved. That includes my freedom, especially your freedom. Abigail moved closer. Do you love me? The direct question unsettled him more than gunfire ever had. Matteo looked down at her. I do not know how to describe what I feel without making it sound dangerous. Try. He took a slow breath. When you enter a room, I know where every weapon is and forget why I came. When you are angry with me, I would rather face an army than your silence. When I imagined releasing you, I believed I was doing something honorable. Then every morning arrived without you. And honor felt like punishment. Abigail felt her eyes fill with tears. That is still not an answer. His hand rose to her face. This time, he did not stop. I love you. She leaned into his touch. I am still angry with you. I know. I do not trust you completely. I know. You cannot solve every disagreement by surrounding a building with armed men. He considered that. Most disagreements, Matteo, no armed men. She smiled despite herself. He looked at her smile as though it were something sacred. Abigail placed her hand over his. I love the man you are trying to become. His forehead touched hers. Is that enough? It is a beginning. He kissed her. There was no audience, no political agreement, and no ring taken from another woman. Only rain against the windows and two wounded people choosing honesty over control. 6 months later, the Leone mansion opened its doors for the first public event in its history. The foundation hosted families from across Chicago. Children ran through halls once guarded by armed men. Music filled the dining room where Abigail had once been humiliated. The carved wooden box stood behind protected glass. Beside it were photographs of the mothers of Abigail and Matteo, along with a plaque describing the foundation they had created together. Abigail stood near the grand staircase in a dark blue dress. She was no longer invisible. Matteo approached her. Guests still moved away when they saw him. His reputation had not disappeared. Neither had the enemies who watched him. But the organization was changing. Illegal routes were being closed. Violent captains were being removed. Legitimate companies were replacing the businesses built through fear. The transformation was slow and dangerous. Matteo did not pretend otherwise. He held out his hand. Walk with me. We're outside. Snow had begun falling beyond the windows. Abigail followed him into the garden. Hundreds of candles lined the path toward the frozen lake. No guards were visible, though Abigail suspected they were hidden among the trees. Matteo stopped beneath a stone arch. He removed a small box from his coat. Abigail stared at it. This feels familiar. This time, no one has been insulted. That is already an improvement. He opened the box. Inside was a simple ring made from dark gold. A small diamond rested at its center. The gold came from the watch of my mother, Matteo said. The diamond came from the ring you returned. The inside contains a piece of metal from the watch of your father. Abigail could not speak. Matteo lowered himself to one knee. The most feared mafia boss in Chicago knelt in the snow before the woman who had once cleaned his empty rooms. I gave you a ring before I understood that love without choice is another form of captivity. His voice remained calm, but emotion moved beneath every word. I cannot promise you a life without danger. I cannot erase the man I was. I can promise that no decision about your life will ever be made without you again. Abigail looked at the mansion behind him. The dining room windows glowed against the winter night. Families stood inside the home, once ruled by secrecy and fear. Matteo continued. Abigail Reed. Will you choose me? She remembered the first ring placed in her palm before a room filled with powerful men. That ring had been a weapon. This one was a question. Abigail held out her hand. Yes. Matteo placed the ring on her finger. He rose and pulled her close. The snow fell around them as he kissed her beneath the candlelit arch, through the windows. The guests began applauding. Abigail laughed against his lips. You said there would be no audience. I said no one would be insulted. You planned this. I hoped. There is a difference. She rested her hand against his chest. Matteo looked down at the ring. The fear in his eyes surprised her. What is wrong? I know how to survive war. His arms tightened around her. I do not know how to survive losing this. Abigail touched his face. Then do not treat love like a war. What should I treat it as? A home. Matteo looked toward the mansion. For most of his life, that building had been a fortress. Every door had concealed a secret. Every table had hosted an alliance. Every room had carried the memory of someone lost. Now light filled the windows. Music reached the garden. Children laughed inside. Matteo looked at Abigail. Then take me home. She placed her hand in his. Together. They walked through the snow toward the mansion. The doors opened before them. This time, Abigail did not enter as the woman who cleaned the rooms. She entered as the woman who had changed the meaning of the house. Matteo had once believed loyalty was proven through blood, fear, and sacrifice. Abigail taught him that true loyalty was quieter. It was standing beside someone without owning them. It was protecting their dignity when the world demanded their silence. It was admitting the truth when a lie would preserve power. It was giving someone the freedom to leave, then becoming worthy of the moment they chose to stay. At the top of the staircase, Matteo stopped. The guests waited below. Abigail looked at him. Are you afraid? No. She raised an eyebrow. Matteo glanced toward the crowded hall. A little. Abigail smiled. Good. It means this matters. He lifted her hand and kissed the ring. Then they entered the light together. Outside, black vehicles remained beneath the falling snow. Enemies still watched from distant streets. The world of Matteo had not become safe. But inside the Leone mansion, the future had begun. Not with a command. Not with a political agreement. Not with a ring taken in anger. It began with a question, and with the Chuppy housekeeper who finally chose the life she deserved.